I'm gonna show you how to get access back to your TV on the ColorControl app. Sometimes, for some reason, a Windows update, something happens and your TV is no longer detected on the ColorControl app. Even if you have the TV and the computer connected to the same Wi-Fi, still not being recognized or just give you an error. And I know how annoying can that be, because maybe you change something on the service menu, like for example you turn on module HDR, and that is very good for SDR if you're gonna use Motion Pro High, but that is going to lower the peak brightness for HDR, for example. So that happened to me. So that is something that if you don't have access to the service menu, you don't have the special remote, that is a pain. That's a pain, and or any other changes you're doing. So this ColorControl app allows you to make changes on the TV. Even if you have a console, you can use this app. You just need to connect your laptop. This is a question I get a lot, so I'm gonna answer that too. You have to connect your TV with your laptop or desktop computer, and you have the console connected to the TV at the same time. So on this app, the only thing you need to do is just select the HDMI port, the HDMI port that you want to make changes on. So let's say you have the computer on HDMI 1 and the console on HDMI 2, then you just select HDMI 2 and make the changes you want. And those changes are gonna be saved. So for example, if you want to change the color gamut, if you want to change turn on the peak brightness, if you are on SDR in game optimizer mode, you don't have access to that. So here with this app, you can turn on that peak brightness. You can do many things. You actually have full control. If you have an NVIDIA GPU, you also have access to dithering and many other things. So dithering, other options that you have. And of course, you have access to a service menu by going here to options and selecting show advanced actions, and you can do that at your own risk. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to add the TV manually. So what you have to do is you have to click here on add, and you have to enter the name, which is just LG, IP address, and MAC address. So where can you get this information on your TV? You click on settings, you just leave that settings button, this button, just press. You go here to general. Let me move the camera a little bit. You go here to general, and then network. Go to your Wi-Fi, other network, and advanced Wi-Fi settings. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move the camera because I don't want to reveal that the MAC address and the IP address. So I'm going to move the camera to the right, and I'm going to type in the information, so you see that this works. And then I am going to access the service menu, and I'm gonna show you that it's actually working. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna move the camera, and I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing. Just click here on advanced Wi-Fi settings. You see the IP address is the first piece of information that we have, and it's just a number. So here on the name, we're gonna just LG. So the IP address is a number. So I'm just gonna copy this number. It has dots, so make sure you copy the number with the dots. And we're gonna copy that MAC address, which I'm not sure if this MAC address is case sensitive, but I am just using uppercase just in case. You just copy that MAC address. It's a combination of numbers and letters, and that's all you have to do. You will see that it works, and you will get access back to the ColorControl app. So you know how Windows is. Sometimes Windows just messes things up, and yeah, it's a pain sometimes. So I did it. So after doing that, I'm gonna show you. Let me lower the camera so I don't show that IP address, because when you do it manually, you show the IP address. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to access the service menu by going here to Expert and Instart. So let me move the camera here to the right, so because on the service menu you also see the IP address. So I click on Instart, you see that I have access to a service menu. So there you go. That's how you do it. So just to recap what I do here on this service menu, now that I'm here, I'm gonna show you the only thing that I do on the service menu. And I don't advise you to do this. Do it at your own risk, do your research, and decide if it even makes sense for you to access the service menu. So what I do here on the service menu, the only thing I do is check the hours of the TV. In case you are in Europe, for some reason you cannot see the hours on the regular menus. I show how to get that information, but for some reason people from Europe are telling me that I cannot see the hours of the TV, which is basically the amount of time the TV has been on. My TV right now, 783 hours, so that's a curious piece of information. That's one thing I do on the service menu. The other thing is I disable TPC and GSR, which is basically TPC is going to dim the screen when it detects a static image. And that sounds very good, but the problem is sometimes you have a dark scene, so most of the screen is dark, and the TV, even if it's dynamic content, the TV, these mechanisms, TPC, kicks in. So as a consequence, you're playing a dark game, like a horror game, or you're watching a horror movie, and it's dark, and the TV makes everything even darker. So if that is bothering you, that's the solution, turning off TPC. And GSR, what it's supposed to do is just to dim logos, and that is fantastic. If it works flawlessly, that would be amazing. But the problem is it dims the entire screen. It not only dims the logo, it dims the entire screen just a little bit. So I turn that off too. And the other thing I do here on the service menu is if I want to use black frame insertion, so Motion Pro High on SDR, because the game doesn't support HDR, and if I don't want to use the HLG trick with dynamic tone mapping on because the colors are messed up, then what I can do on SDR is I turn this module HDR to on, and it gives me more brightness on SDR. It gives you more than 400 nits full screen on SDR, which is the maximum capability of this TV when it comes to full screen brightness. But I don't know if you can notice this here on the video, but if you are on HDR, which I am right now, I have right now Windows on HDR, and I haven't shown this on any other video, so this is new information. If I turn this to normal, which is the default, by default this is on normal, you see that the brightness goes up. So if you are using HDR, you do not want to have this module HDR on because you are limiting the peak brightness. So this module HDR on is going to give you a lot more brightness on SDR, but it's going to affect the HDR. So this is not a setting to set and forget, like you can do here with GSR and TPC and GSR. This is not set and forget. If you want to use it for that specific case, which is basically Motion Pro High on SDR, and it works very well. It gives you all the brightness you need. So if you want to use it for that, great. But then if you want to use HDR, you want to turn this back to normal, because I don't know if you can see it on the video, the brightness goes up in normal on HDR. And if you have this on, it's gonna be less bright on HDR. So keep that in mind. That's it. Let me know if you still have any questions. And yeah.